In this video, we're looking at UFC 291. I'm going to give you my final picks. We're going to look at DraftKings strategy, and I'm going to give you some free money, so make sure you watch until the end. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. If you haven't already, go back and watch the predictions video from earlier in the week. That'll be linked in the description. That's a full card breakdown where we talk about straight betting opportunities. This is different. This is DraftKings. This is the nitty gritty. This is for you nerds out there. We're going to get started right now. Since we've had no changes to the card throughout the week, we can jump right to value plays. These are plays at 8,000 and below. You're going to need some in your lineup to make things work, and there are a couple of spots that we love. First, I want to look at Alex Pereira, and this is important. Not only does he give you access to the first round knockout upside, he has knockdown upside, and he's going to be the better striker in this matchup, and I think that he goes on to win. But what I feel is most important about this is how you play Alex Pereira or not play him this week. Being that he's in the co-main event, he is who he is, everybody wants to play him, it's going to be easy for you to be underweight to Poatan this week. I expect him to come in right around 35 to 45% ownership, somewhere in that range, and it's going to be easy for you to not play him. That's going to make you different right away because he's one of the most popular underdogs of the slate. Now again, it's possible that he reaches that ceiling. He could score 110 DraftKings points this week right around this price, and he's going to be on the optimal lineup. But not a whole lot of guys are absolutely blowing the doors off of Jan Błachowicz. I don't think that happens, so I think he's more likely going to score around 80 to 90 points this week at best, and that's not what I want. This could end up being a very high scoring card because of all the finishing upside that you have up and down the card, and I think this is one of those fights that goes the distance. I think way too many people are going to get here, but I do think that he's a solid value play if you need to save the salary and this is where you want to go. Now our next value play is in the main event. It's Justin Gaethje. He's going to carry a decent amount of ownership as well, maybe even more than Pereira, but it's hard to not want to get here this week considering how many points he can score and having 5 rounds to work. If this goes the distance, I do think that Dustin Poirier wins, but at the same time, if Justin Gaethje does win, we saw him score almost 100 points against Tony Ferguson in a fight with no knockdowns and no takedowns. Not only that, but he had no control time either, and if he does want to mix in the wrestling just to give Dustin Poirier another look, I think he can score north of 100 points in a decision win. But we talked about this a little bit in the predictions video earlier in the week. I think if Justin Gaethje were to win this fight, it's inside the distance. Let's say he comes up with a 3rd round finish where he's really pouring it on, scores a knockdown. I think he can get to around 110 to 115 DraftKings points, and you'll absolutely need that at 7,900. You'll want to allocate exposure to both sides of this matchup because you'll need the winner in your lineup. I'm certain of that, but I do prefer Justin Gaethje, and I think he's one of the better value plays of the week. Now our next value play is one of the strongest value plays in the entire slate with Derrick Lewis. This could be a good buy low spot for Derrick Lewis. I understand from what I've heard that publicly Pazau is the cat's pajamas this week. Derrick Lewis has potential to win this fight in the first round, and if he gets a knockdown in the first round, he gets a finish in the first round, then you're looking at a situation where you have at least 100 DraftKings points. Now you have to worry about him getting out grappled here, him being the one that's moving backward constantly, and him not letting his hands go early enough to get you that first round finish, but if you do get it, and Derrick Lewis is in your lineup at 7,700, you're in a great spot. I see a decent amount of people getting here just because of the name value alone. Derrick Lewis is going to pull ownership numbers every time, no matter who he fights, because he has that one-shot knockout power, and that makes sense. Even if you think Derrick Lewis is going to lose this fight, he gets his little legs kicked out from under him, he gets out wrestled for 15 minutes. If you think all that's going to happen, it's still worth taking a shot on Derrick Lewis. You don't always play the people you think are going to win, you play the people that have the highest scoring potential, and the Black Beast is right at the top of the list in terms of scoring potential on this slate. Now our next value play here is very sneaky, very sneaky. Uros Medic coming in at 7,600. I think he's going to go under the radar. I don't think a lot of people are going to get here when you have underdog options like Gaethje, like Poatan, even like Derrick Lewis, all 3 that we've already mentioned. And if Medic wins this fight, it's probably going to be early. It's probably going to be a knockout, and he's going to score a lot of points in the process. I worry about how physically imposing Semmelsberger can be. I worry about them fighting at elevation. I worry about him trying to pace himself because of those 2 things. But if he lets all his limbs fly, I think he can catch Matt Semmelsberger, who's not particularly known for his defense, more so his toughness, and toughness only gets you so far. The jury is still very much out on Uros Medic. I understand that Jalen Turner packed him up pretty quickly in the first round, but outside of that, he looked dominant in his other 2 UFC performances. He looked powerful, and he was netting you 122 DraftKings points and 109 DraftKings points. It's a small sample size, but if the guy's averaging 115 DraftKings points in fights that he's winning, and he's going to come in lower owned than the 3 people we already mentioned, he's worth the shot. sneaky value on Uros Medic, who I think goes under the radar this week. Now, I'll be honest, I can tell you can make a case for Vinicius Salvador, Michel Pereira, not so much. I'm not dying to play Michel Pereira. Claudio Ribeiro coming in at 7,200 is kind of interesting because you feel like he has that knockout upside over anybody, but I truly think he gets pieced up here. So to me, this range from Uros Medic all the way down to Priscilla Cash as an underdog is kind of no man's land. I'm not interested in Salvador, Pereira, Ribeiro, Giles, or Flowers. Flowers, maybe. Flowers is an interesting play because if you wanted to get here, you're going to be the few, the proud, the guys that are playing Flowers. Nobody's going to be looking to play this guy in his UFC debut, fighting a bigger athlete, fighting somebody who's proven in the UFC, but at the same time, if this guy comes out hot, knows that he only has 5 minutes to work because he's going to gas out if not, I could totally see him catching the chin of Jake Matthews because Jake Matthews last time out was getting knocked all over the place by Matt Semmelsberger. So it's kind of strange when you look at $6,900 for a guy making his debut with all that finishing upside coming in at low ownership. It almost seems like the perfect storm. But don't be surprised if you see Jake Matthews come in over-owned this week, and not for nothing, Jake Matthews isn't finishing a whole lot of these fights. If you look at some of these fights that he's having, last time out, again, he was getting dropped and nearly finished in every round against Matt Semmelsberger. He knocked out Andre Fialho in the performance of his career, but then before that, he gets submitted by Sean Brady, doesn't really do much for that entire fight, spends a lot of it just being controlled. He's going the distance with the ghost of Diego Sanchez, he's going the distance with Emil Meek. Before that, he wins a decision. He gets submitted, he wins by submission, so that's one of these high ceiling kind of games. He wins a decision over the Leech in a performance where he was dominant. He went the full 3 rounds, but he scored 97 points because he was getting takedowns, he was getting knockdowns. I think the finishing upside for Jake Matthews is low, while the ownership for Jake Matthews is a little on the high side. So if you want to take a shot on Darius Flowers, I think that makes sense because again, you don't always play the person that you think is going to win the fight, but you do play the person that you know can win you the game. And it's interesting because this pocket down here at the bottom with Flowers and Cachoeira and Tony Ferguson all look very viable. Outside of his win with Ally Quinta, Bobby Green looks like he doesn't even finish his lunch. He's not going to finish Tony Ferguson here, and Tony Ferguson is going to be live for a knockout from the beginning to the end. And I say that because Bobby Green has that striking defense where the hands are low, Philly shell, moving his head a lot, and that works sometimes, but in MMA, there's dire consequences when you're trying to fight like that, and I think Tony Ferguson could catch him with a left hand and knock him out. I think Priscilla Cachoeira can knock out anybody in the division that she fights in. However, she probably gets taken down here. Miranda Maverick trains at elevation. I'm worried for Zombie Girl this week, and it's unfortunate if you know the history that we have on the channel. But now we can use some of these value plays to build some lineups, get some ideas, and show you what you need to do to dominate your competition this week. But before we do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and share this with somebody who you know is going to be watching the fights this week. All free ways to support the channel. It helps me, it helps Oscar, everybody's happy. First, we'll look at cash games. These are 50-50s, head-to-heads, double-ups. Contests that are very important for you to protect your bankroll, build your bankroll, become better at DraftKings as a whole, and there's a way that you need to approach it this week. You're going to want to start by stacking the main event. This is a main event that probably doesn't finish that quickly. Both guys are going to land a lot of strikes, throw a lot of strikes, and I think this is going to be a war back and forth, just like the first fight. You're going to want to stack the BMF title fight. As always, it comes out to $16,200 salary, leaving us with $8,450 left over per fighter, so I'm going to go all the way down here, and I'm going to punt Tony Ferguson because I don't think he gets finished, and I think he has a better chance of winning than what the line is suggesting. That leaves us with a ton of salary left over to work with. We have over $9,000 per fighter left, so I'm going to go to the most confident pick that I have on the card, which would be Gabriel Bonfim, and he probably wins in the first round by submission. This still leaves me with almost $9,000 left over per fighter, so I'm probably grabbing Roman Kopylov. I'll come down here and grab CJ Vergara, and I've left $200 salary on the table. Now, if we just talk through the approach, again, we're going to stack the main event because it just makes sense. It's not like heavyweights and the fight's going to end right away. These guys are both going to score a considerable amount of points. A lot of you already know this. Some of you don't. Some of you are new, so I'm just going to explain when you're stacking the main event, it's not just because you think the fight's going to go the distance, but you need to think of how many points the loser is going to score versus the rest of the losers on the card. You have 12 fights on this card. That means there are going to be 12 losers. I'm confident that either Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier is going to score more than any other loser on the card. Again, with Tony Ferguson, I think he has a higher chance of winning than the line would suggest. On top of that, he probably doesn't get finished here, so he's going to score a good amount of points, more points in 3-round loss than if he got knocked out in the first round, which is the case for some of these guys that are going to lose this week. Gabriel Bonfim, high finishing upside. I think he gets it done early in round 1. Roman Kopylov, I think he wins wins by knockout. And then CJ Vergara, I think that he's just going to outwork Vinicius Salvador. I think he's going to take him down a couple of times. I think he's going to pull away later in this fight. Now, that doesn't need to be your cash game lineup. You can tweak things a little bit, but that is kind of the base. You want to have a punt play. You want to stack the main event. If it's stackable, this week it is. Grab somebody who you like and then take a shot at 2 people in the mid-range. For the official DraftKings strategy guide and what you're going to do in your cash games and your tournaments, which we'll talk about in just a second, you can visit kunithmma.com. It's going to be under the blog section. You can go check it out. Not only will that be there, but the official bets for the week, access to the community tab, and more. All of that is going to be linked in the description. Now we can get into building the tournament lineups, where the MMA gods not only need to be on your side, but they need to look at you favorably. You want to win these tournaments, you need the stars to align. Now, there are ways to put yourself in a position where you don't need to have that happen and you could still win tournaments, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. But I'll start by showing you what I think most people are going to come with this week when you're playing in your contests. I think a lot of people are going to roster Dustin Poirier and Alex Pereira. And if it's not Dustin Poirier, Pereira, I think we're going to see Justin Gaethje and Pereira, but this is going to be very popular this week. Let's say it is Dustin Poirier. You've got 84.25 left over per fighter. You're going to see this range here, and I think a lot of people will probably end up picking somebody like Derrick Lewis. 86.66 left over per fighter. At this point, nobody has to play any more underdogs if they didn't want to. So you can come up here to somebody like Kevin Holland. You can grab Matthew Semmelsberger. If you've got 9,000 left over, you can grab Roman Kopylov. You can grab Wonderboy, CJ Vergara. If these were the options that people had left, I think most people would flock to Roman Kopylov, not leave any kind of salary, and that is the chalk lineup of the week. I wouldn't come with this lineup. There are a lot of things about this that I don't like. I don't like the ownership on Pereira. I think that Justin Gaethje has a really good chance of winning the rematch. I don't hate this right here. 81.50 left over per fighter. I think I'd probably come down here and grab somebody cheap, grab somebody inexpensive. Maybe I do grab Justin Gaethje. I have 8,400 left over. I have to grab another underdog. Maybe at this point, since I don't have him in my lineup, I'll grab Vinicius Salvador. Or I'll swap around and grab some of the value plays. I'll take out Matt Semmelsberger. I'll grab Uros Medic. I'll take out Vinicius Salvador. 9,400 left over. I'll go right up to Gabriel Bonfim. This features a lot of the value plays from before. If I blow it up and we look at things from another angle, what if we just grab Tony Ferguson and Darius Flowers and then we could do anything that we want? Well, what would we want to do in this situation? When you can have it all, what would you want to do? Well, you've got 9,100 left over, so let's grab Bonfim. Let's grab Miranda Maverick, and we've got 8,900 left over. This is where we could get techie. Let's say I grabbed Roman Kopylov at 9,000. I have 8,800 left over, but I already have the other side of this matchup, and I already have the other side of this matchup, so I could have any fighter on the slate that I want. Well, if I'm playing in a big contest, if I'm playing in a big tournament, I want to get different. I think one of the best ways that you can get different in DFS in general, but especially in MMA DFS, is to leave salary on the table. How much? I don't care. Let's say in this case you went with Justin Gaethje at 7,900. You left 900 salary on the table. You played 2 of the 3 biggest underdogs on the slate. You didn't play Pereira. You didn't play Poirier. This is very different. You've got Miranda Maverick, who's probably not pulling crazy numbers this week either. This is how you get different and come up with that 1% lineup this week. Now, let's say you did want to play Dustin Poirier, which if you did, I feel like that makes sense. How many points did Dustin Poirier score last time he fought Justin Gaethje? He scored about 111. If he does that this week, he's on the optimal lineup. So if we did go with Dustin Poirier, we come down here and we start to grab some of the inexpensive plays like an Uros Medic, for example. Let's say you went with Medic and then you wanted to follow that up with $7,700 Derrick Lewis. You're at 8,800 left to spend. I'm coming here and I'm grabbing Kevin Holland. I'm grabbing CJ Vergara, and I'm going to come up here and grab Gabriel Bonfim. I don't mind this at all. You got Dustin Poirier, who if he wins this fight, it's either going to be a decision where he scores a ton of points, or he's going to finish Justin Gaethje late with a knockout. He might even try to take Justin Gaethje down in this fight, because Justin Gaethje in big fights has not shown any ability to grapple. You have Uros Medic here. Again, if he wins, it's going to be by knockout. It's going to be early. Same thing with Derrick Lewis, always live for a knockout. I think Kevin Holland is going to be somebody who gets a lot of ownership, but can score you a good amount of points. I think he wins this fight inside the distance pretty cleanly. He may not be the better offensive wrestler than Michael Chiesa, but outside of that, I think he's better than Chiesa everywhere. And I think if they spend more than 2 minutes at a time on the feet, he's going to knock him out. He may, however, spend a lot of time up against the fence, defending takedowns, and that won't be great. But if he is able to get some time and space and let his hands go, I think he can knock him out. And even if Chiesa comes in with a bad shot, or he's spending too much time looking to take the back or looking to get a dominant position on the ground and doesn't mind his P's and Q's, Kevin Holland can snatch something up. I just don't see a situation where Kevin Holland wins this fight and it's not inside the distance. So the likelihood of him scoring you a lot of points this week is very, very high. And we've talked about CJ Vergara and Gabriel Bonfim at this point. Now, if you're somebody that's been playing for a while, you've been playing for the past couple of events, you've been playing all year, and you just haven't been winning consistently, what I recommend is look at your contest selection. If you're new to the channel and you haven't seen these videos, or if you've been around for a while and you haven't seen these videos, I do have videos not only on DraftKings strategy and how to make lineups, how to make winning lineups, but also contest selection and the contests that you should be entering in. If you've been struggling all year, I recommend you take a hard look at the contests that you're in. If you're in the $3 20 max contest, the chances of you winning that are very low. That's a very big field. Even if you're in the $25 contest with the biggest prize pool on DraftKings, at least for MMA, that's great. If you win that, that's cool, but at the same time, that prize chops quite frequently. It hasn't been lately, but normally that's the case, and it'll go back to normal very soon, probably this week. And right now it's $25 to enter that contest. So you make 4 lineups, that's $100. You're better off playing the $100 single entry contest with 333 people. It's a lot easier to come into the top 1% of the 300 person contest than it is for the 30,000 person contest. Even the $40 single entry contest, if you want to play that versus playing 20 lineups at $3 a piece for $60 is going to make more sense. And to go a step further, take that $60 that you would have put in the 20 max contest. You can take 40 of that and put it in the single entry contest, and you can take the other 20 and put it in cash games. Because here's the thing, if you build your cash game lineups the right way, you should be winning pretty consistently. So if you take that $20 and it doubles in your cash games, you've made $40. And if you lose the other 40 because your lineup didn't do well in the single entry, well, you're left with $40. We've talked about this a lot on the channel over the years at this point. It's much better to end the night with something rather than zero. There's a go for broke mentality in DFS, which doesn't make sense to me. I can understand you making that 1% lineup that either comes in first or comes in last, but at the same time, most of us would be a lot happier with having half of what we put in or double what we put in for the night as opposed to finishing with zero. So just keep that in mind when you're building lineups and take a good hard look at the contest that you're in if things haven't been going your way. And we're going to finish everything up with the can't miss slip of the week for Underdog Fantasy. If you're not familiar with Underdog Fantasy, it's a great way to play fantasy sports. If you get all 5 correct, you can win 20 times on your money, or you can get insurance where you don't need to be perfect. You can get one of them wrong and still make something. But you won't need that this week. You won't need that damn insurance because I'm going to show you exactly what you need to play in order to get all of the monies. Dustin Poirier, higher than 82.5 significant strikes. Thank you. I will take some of that. Kevin Holland, over a half of a finish. Of course. Gabriel Bonfim, I've said this time and time again throughout the week. He's going to get that submission win. And we'll round this out with CJ Vergara, over 61.5 significant strikes. I think he hits that number for us this week. Got Dustin Poirier over strikes. I've got higher down the entire list. So that's Poirier strikes, finish for Holland, submission for Bonfim, finish for Kopylov, and 65.5 significant strikes for CJ Vergara. You can visit Underdog Fantasy. They will match your first deposit up to $100 if you use promo code Kunith. You can use that code, that's KUNATH, or you can hit the link in the description. It'll also be in a pinned comment. It'll bring you right to the spot where you create an account, make your first deposit. They're going to match that deposit, and then you can play with house money. Tell them the face of the fantasy fight game sent you. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I wish you the best of luck.